In Winterset, Iowa, almost everyone knew everyone else. It wasn't just a town, it was a quiet, close-knit community where faces were familiar and strangers rarely stayed strangers for long. Father Harris had grown up here. He had spent his entire life among these people, listening to their worries, celebrating their joys, and believing he understood every corner of the town. That's why he was caught off guard when, after Sunday service, a woman approached him with concern in her voice. "There's a little boy," Mrs. Santiago said softly. "His name is Bobby. Every few days he comes asking for food. He looks about 7 or 8. Father Harris frowned. "Just food?" "Yes," she replied. "He says his mother is sick and can't work. He takes food to her himself. But when I asked where they live, he just pointed in a random direction." She hesitated. "I don't think they have a home." The word stayed with the priest long after the conversation ended. Over the next few days, Father Harris asked around. One man recalled seeing a young boy crying at a bus stop. Another mentioned a child who disappeared the moment anyone suggested visiting his mother together. Bobby always seemed to tense up when adults got too close. Then, one cold afternoon, Father Harris decided he couldn't wait any longer. He saw Bobby walking through town with a bag of food in his hands. Instead of heading toward the neighborhoods, the boy turned toward the outskirts of Winterset, an abandoned area where no one lived anymore. Keeping his distance, the priest followed. The weather wasn't brutal, but it was cold enough to make him uneasy. The farther they walked, the quieter it became. Suddenly, Bobby vanished from sight. Father Harris's heart sank. Then he heard barking. On a vacant lot stood a small rundown shack. Snow surrounded it, untouched. A large sheepdog barked fiercely from beside the structure, guarding it with determination. Moments later, Bobby stepped outside and froze when he saw the priest. "Don't be afraid," Father Harris said gently. "I'm here to help. I want to talk to your mother. Is she inside?" Bobby looked at him carefully. Then he asked with simple honesty, "Can you really help us?" When Father Harris nodded, Bobby disappeared into the shack. Seconds later, he returned holding the hand of a little girl, no more than 4 years old. "That's my sister, Bobby," said quietly. "Her name is Rosie." The priest's heart tightened. "Our mom is gone," Bobby continued. "She died. Dad was gone before that. We ran away because I was scared they'd separate us." He glanced back at the dog. "Sparky protects us." Father Harris knelt down, meeting their eyes. "You've been very brave," he said softly, "but you don't have to do this alone anymore." Bobby's voice trembled. "We can stay here. I'll get a job. I'll take care of her." The priest shook his head gently. "Winter is coming. You need help, and I promise you no one will separate you." Rosie finally spoke, her voice barely a whisper. "Sparky stays too?" Father Harris smiled. "Sparky stays." And with that promise, everything began to change. Father Harris led the children back toward the church as daylight faded. Bobby walked close to Rosie, his small hand never leaving hers, while Sparky followed faithfully behind. That night, for the first time in months, the children slept in warm beds in a quiet back room of the church. Sparky lay nearby, alert but calm, as if he finally allowed himself to rest. The next morning, Father Harris began asking questions. It didn't take long to uncover the truth. Bobby and Rosie's mother had passed away nearly 3 months earlier. With no father to be found, the children had slipped through the cracks. Social services had been searching for them ever since. When Father Harris contacted the authorities, they thanked him for finding the children. They explained that Bobby and Rosie would need a permanent home, but assured him that every effort would be made to keep them together. That promise mattered most. While the paperwork moved forward, the children stayed under the care of Father Harris and the local nuns. They ate properly. Rosie laughed more each day. Bobby, finally free from constant worry, began to act like a child again. Mrs. Santiago soon approached the priest with an idea. "There's a couple," she said. "The McCartneys. They've always wanted children but never could have any. They're good people, and they love dogs." The suggestion was passed along. Background checks were completed, meetings were arranged, and 2 weeks later, the McCartneys welcomed Bobby and Rosie into their home, Sparky included. The transition wasn't easy, but it was filled with patience and kindness. The children stayed together, just as promised. They gained not only a house, but a family. On a quiet Sunday, the McCartneys returned to the church. They thanked Father Harris and Mrs. Santiago, their voices full of emotion. Around them, the people of Winterset smiled, proud of what their small town had done. Bobby looked around at the familiar faces that had once been strangers. He finally understood something important. He had never truly been alone. And sometimes, even in the coldest seasons, it only takes one person to notice to change everything.